school, and I'm just going to give you a quick flavour of sort of the opportunities that Aston have. Uh, I will say I'm going to be impartial here. So, as a career practitioner, all of our advice to Aston students is impartial and confidential. I do realise, though, that not only am I paid by Aston, my father was an international student at Aston, and he met my mother because the halls of residence he stayed at was very close to where my mother lived in Aston. So if it wasn't for Aston University, I wouldn't be here at the moment. So I obviously do have a biased opinion. What I'm going to try and do, though, is give an overview of really how what employers are looking for and how students, graduates can stand out. And I'll obviously talk about the support that Aston offers, in particular around our placement year. All of the business programs, so every degree course at undergraduate at Aston does have a compulsory placement. I'll talk about the actual placement in more detail in a second, but that does hold academic weighting as well. So 10% of the overall degree classification is based on the placement. Yeah, we're an award-winning career service. We help students with just a range on a range of topics, not just helping with CVs and interview prep, which of course we do. We realize a lot of students who come and start to study have a high level of career uncertainty, meaning that they're not really sure exactly what they want to do. So we try and open up awareness of what are the options on their horizon, as well as help them get the skills to get those opportunities as well. We're a rather large team. So we have the careers consultants, myself and six others in that, and we look after first years and final years. We have a massive placements team who look after predominantly second years, and a separate on-placement team for students that are away during their placement. Should anything or they need any support, they've still got contact time with us. We also have a graduate team as well who look after graduates for 3 years after they finish studying with us. Yeah, I won't spend much time on this, but just to say the university is ranked within the top 5 worldwide. We're triple accredited. And I say the careers service has won some awards fairly recently as well. The employability offer, students will have unlimited one-to-one appointments. They can get rather busy, especially at the beginning of each term, but there's no cap on how many appointments students can have. We deliver workshops. So this would be, again, on CV writing, LinkedIn, interview skills. Those are delivered centrally, so all students can attend. We also have a lot of embedded content as well. So careers is very much part of the curriculum at Aston. In the business school, there'll be a core module in year 1 where 10% of that assessment is career and employability based. Same in year 2. The placement itself holds academic weight, and we're introducing a consultancy project work for final year modules as well. So there's employability at each level or each year in the curriculum at Aston. So just having a bit of a look at what employers are really looking for versus the conceptions of what a lot of people think. So this is a slide that I use in my teaching materials. It's a bit of research from a company called Bright Network. Bright Network, fantastic resource. They are student centric. It's a job board that only advertises degree apprenticeships, internships, which are about 10 weeks, placements, which are around 10 months, and graduate schemes as well. They are great for looking at which employers are holding events online and a whole range of other career resources as well. So definitely recommend Bright Network. Their research arm asks students what they think employers are looking for. And most students said existing industry experience, a high grade, and communication skills. Whereas when they ask the employers what's most important, and this is graduate level recruitment, so either placement or graduate scheme, the number one thing employers are looking for is a passion for the business, with the grade being really one of the lower things that they take into consideration. So, what does passion for the business mean? I kind of tried to explain this in terms of comprehension of what the firm does. So, do applicants have an awareness of the goods or services the company provide? Who are the customers? Why do the customers use that service? What are some typical issues, barriers, challenges within the workplace day to day? How is performance measured, or what are the expectations around work outputs as well? We have quite a lot of guest speakers come into our lectures to help provide those insights. But what we find is a lot of students find it hard to connect the dots between their own current skill set and the world of work. So we encourage students to do quite a lot of career research by talking to people in the roles they're aspiring to help them map out what that role would look like. And that enables them to create career narratives that articulate why their skill is useful in that role, rather than simply saying, I've got this skill. Unfortunately, around 91% of students are now using generative AI for application assistance with CVs, cover letters, and things like that. And the AI does a good job of skill matching. So we've got all the keywords we need in the CV. And unfortunately, now employers are looking for more. So it's not just what skill have you got, but do you understand why we are asking for this skill and how it would be used in this role? That's how to sort of develop a good application. Um, we, I'm not going to test you on this, but just have a think in your heads. Is this true or false? 80% of UK employers don't really focus on what degree you've studied. So do employers care what degree you studied? True or false? This is true. So the vast majority of UK employers very open in terms of degree subject. The 20% that do care are going to be in healthcare. Obviously, I want my doctor to have studied medicine, nursing. Engineering and computer science is quite prescriptive with their requirements as well. But for instance, I've taken some of my second year students on trips to visit companies, large accounting firms, where we do have alumna working there. We met three female graduates working at an accounting firm. All of them came from chemistry, which was a bit shocking to my accounting students, who are then, how have you managed to get the accounting job? So it's the employers, as I say, they're going to be focused more on your motivations to join the firm, and generally the soft skill set like teamwork, communication, rather than just the title of your degree. One more little question. Again, you don't have to put in the chat an answer. Just think about this one. True or false? 50% of employers now ask for a minimum 2-1 degree. So true or false? We're saying half of employers are asking for a 2-1. 2-1 being kind of 60% or more, considered a really strong mark. And the answer here is false. It's actually only 40% of employers are asking for a 2-1. There is a bit of a myth out there that unless you get a first class degree, which would be 70% or above, you won't be able to secure a job. So it's actually only 40% asking for 2-1. The vast majority ask for 2-2. That's for graduate schemes. Again, this has probably been the case since the late 80s. I would say, and it's a bit of a fallacy or myth, like I say, that high grades are required. Again, they're more interested in the soft skill set and motivations that you bring. Just kind of echo this. This is an advert from GSK, large pharmaceutical firm. This is an actual job advert, and it says that we don't look for specific university degrees or specific universities. Most firms, large ones in particular, will operate something called blind recruitment, which is where they will remove the applicant's name and the name of the university institution off the application before the hiring manager can see it. This removes any unconscious bias in the hiring manager's mind. L'Oreal, this is again a real snapshot from their marketing scheme, graduate marketing scheme. In their requirements, it's all about interpersonal skills, organizational skills, no mention of marketing or grades in there, but some previous office experience is preferred, not essential. And Mars, this is for their supply chain procurement graduate scheme. And they say it's more about attitude, personality, rather than technical knowledge. A lot of the large firm that hire graduates are very happy and do provide full training, which is why they're so open to various degrees. Again, this is a screenshot from HSBC saying it's not what you've studied, it's about your curiosity. Are you really interested in the area of work that we're in? Problem solving, relationship building, these are the kind of core skills that they're looking for. So how can you build those skills whilst at university? Any kind of part-time work, become a student ambassador. We've got volunteering opportunities. Mentoring is massively powerful. At Aston, we've got a peer-to-peer mentoring scheme. So you'd be paired with someone in the same course as you, but the year above. That's really good because by the time you get into your second year, the third year will be on their placement. So you can get a lot of information from a mentor about what it's like, what questions they're asking. And also you get the experience of having a mentee, and that you can put that on your CV and it looks great as well. Join clubs or societies. So we've got a range of societies at the business school. We've got an economic society, finance society, trading society. Again, these societies organize events. They get people from industry to come in. Again, it looks brilliant on your CV as well. Enterprise is one of the big pillars at Aston. We've got a scheme called Be Seen that helps students and graduates set up their own business. You may have heard of a company called Gymshark. Ben Francis was a student at Aston, and he actually dropped out in his second year to continue running the business. But I think that's worked out quite well because Gymshark's worth about $1.4 billion at the moment. And of course, we've got the placement here, which I say is compulsory in business programs. In terms of the placement year, it's a requirement of 30 weeks in total. That's based on a 9 to 5 working week. You could do it longer than 30 weeks if you want to work fewer hours. You don't have to do all 30 weeks at one company. You could do that at 10 weeks over several companies or 15 weeks over two. You could do a flexible placement, which is combine work experience with a study abroad. Aston has over 80 university partners all over the globe, and you could do one semester, which is 10 weeks at a partner university, and then do 20 weeks of work. Alternatively, you could join the Be Seen scheme, set up a business, run that for a year, and that could be your placement as well. So there's a range of options there. We do help students, of course, get their placement. Yeah, I think the onus is certainly on the student to research, start applying, and secure the placement. But there is a lot of support there. We've got a dedicated placements team. We've got Aston Futures, where we advertise placements as well. And we have a very large careers fair every year where we welcome probably over 100 employers on campus so students can start meeting and talking to employers. One quick kind of success story, and this is kind of fresh because the student only contacted me yesterday to tell me about this as well. So he's one of our economics students, fantastic student. He actually set up our economic society. We had one years ago, but that kind of died out, and Alex brought it out of the ashes again. So he set up a student society. During his placement, he did his placement in risk analysis at an investment bank called Jefferies. One of the questions he got at Jefferies was, "We've never hired a student outside of Oxbridge or Imperial. Why should we hire you?" And Alex gave a very nice answer of, if you're looking to increase your scope or diversity of opinions along those sort of lines, then you need to start expanding where you're hiring from. Sort of a textbook kind of answer. And he's in his final year now, and he interviewed recently at Goldman Sachs, a very large investment bank, and has been offered a graduate role in their risk and compliance grad scheme there. So absolute success story. We've got some fantastic students who go on to do some fantastic things. But just to kind of round that off with some feedback from the employers as well. We've got RSM. I know that we've got a lot of alumni working there, and students go on placement to RSM. There's a big office branch there on 103 Colmore Road, the big skyscraper in Birmingham City Centre. I've taken students to visit that office a couple of times. They do get quite a lot of candidates from us, so some nice feedback from them, and Card Trend as well, saying that it's nice to work collaboratively with us. That will bring us to the end of what I'm going to say. I think I'm going to stick around for questions as well. Thanks very much.
Adam, that's really, really helpful. Thank you very much indeed. A very thorough presentation on kind of, I think, where Aston particularly sits, as well as some really good general advice. I'm going to ask Luke to speak as well about a very different experience, and then if that's okay, we'll come back with some questions afterwards. Just as by way of introduction for students, Luke was a student here at KEDST and left in 2023 and has since taken up an apprenticeship journey as opposed to a university route. So it'd be really interesting to hear that completely different view about reasons for choosing that route and kind of the experience so far. If that's okay, Luke, I'll go over to you and then we'll come back for questions and answers afterwards. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thanks, Lou. So Lou's right. 2 years ago, I left KEDST. So about 3 years ago, I was sat in your position on the business and finance pathway at KEDST, and I was a little bit stuck about what to do. So first of all, it's okay if you're not 100% sure, whether it's subject or journey. Yes, you need to start looking and taking opportunities as they come, to go to open days and things like that. But if you don't know what you want to do right now, people put pressure on you, but it's your decision and you have got time to think about it. That's the first thing I'd say. I'll start off with what an apprenticeship is. So an apprenticeship is where you have a full-time job and you get guaranteed 6 hours a week to study a qualification that relates to that particular job. So, for example, I do an accounting apprenticeship. So I study a chartered accounting qualification for set hours a week, and then I work a normal 9 to 5 job in a Monday to Friday working week. So as a legal requirement, as an apprentice, your employer has to give you 6 hours study a week on average. So some weeks you might have 2 days of college a week and some you might have none. But on average, over the course of the year, your employer is legally entitled to give you 6 hours a week of study. You're entitled to a salary. Now, some apprenticeship schemes for people that leave school might be on minimum apprenticeship wage, which you can go and look on the government website about. But most places will pay a competitive wage for that particular job, especially if you've got A levels and in particular very good A levels. So what I would say, if you are doing an apprenticeship, getting good A levels certainly should still be your aim, because that means you can go onto higher levels in apprenticeship, or it means you might be offered more of a salary. In addition to that, you'll get pension benefits and annual leave entitlement. So you will be a full-time employee, except 6 hours a week. You will be able to go and study a qualification that relates to that role. Now, the reason I chose to do an apprenticeship, and I'll give pros and cons for both, is number one, debt. If you go to university, it's already £9,000 a year plus for tuition fees. That's before you've thought about maintenance loans for halls of residence and food and enjoying yourself while you're there. So actually, a lot of people used to say they go to university for the social life, but a lot of the times now, university students have quite heavy part-time jobs. So people that do apprenticeships have their own money that they've earned to be able to go and enjoy their social life. Another pro for me was you got the experience while earning money. So you, at the end of your apprenticeship, most places will guarantee you a job. So you've already got the experience of working in a particular industry, but you've also got money that you can put away and save or spend if you want to, rather than coming out with 60k worth of debt in most cases. And again, like Adam was saying earlier, a lot of people don't actually do a job that was relating to their degree. So spending that much money on a qualification that you might not use is a big commitment, and isn't like it was sort of 10, 20 years ago where you would tend to do your degree. It wouldn't be as much money, and then you would pay it back each month for your salary. With an apprenticeship, you don't pay anything towards your qualification. That's paid for by the government in a levy, and also your exams and everything like that are covered. However, a con of that is, as you're in a 9 to 5 job, you do have the responsibility of working. So decisions may fall to you. You know, it's not like university, you've got a 9 o'clock lecture and you choose you're not going to go in because you're hungover or anything like that. You have got to go and work a full day, and you're responsible for either a department or different things and meeting people. So especially in business and finance, you know, big decisions might be made and you've got to be on the ball of what's going on. But what I would say at the moment is, you know, people think apprenticeship and think labour or builder and things like that. But actually, people in the banking and business and finance industry at the moment, apprenticeships are actually favoured, because you're able to go in, do your qualification on the side, and an organisation will be able to mould you specifically into how they want. So I will go through a little bit about my journey in a bit later about how that works in the NHS. But first of all, I'll start where I was in your position. So I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. So I spoke to my teachers and the careers team, so Lou and Faye, and they're definitely there to help. So if you're not quite sure what you want to do, please ask them, and please speak to your college teachers as well, because they will help you if you want some careers advice within a specific industry or a business you're not sure about. So I'd gone to a few university open days and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't really like the feel of them. And I knew I sort of wanted to do accounting, economics, business, that sort of thing. So I went to some open days and open nights at some big accounting firms in Birmingham. So you might have heard of Deloitte, KPMG, EY. And even then, I just didn't like the feel of the offices. You know, it felt very corporate-y and it just wasn't me. But the finance director at King Ed's at the time, Josh, actually worked at the NHS doing his accounting qualifications in the finance department at Worcester Hospital. And I said, well, there's an opening. Why don't you go for the interview? So I worked with Faye and Lou the day before and went through interview questions and sort of apprenticeships and pros and cons of uni and things like that. So I decided to go for it. And I went for the interview and it felt right straight away. And the reason I'd gone for the interview is because somebody from a different NHS trust in Birmingham, not Worcester, had actually come into King Ed's and done a careers talk after Josh had spoken to me about that apprenticeship. So any opportunities in college like tonight, or if any employers come in, definitely go to them, because the NHS is certainly not somewhere I'd have thought about to do accounting and finance. But actually, it makes sense because it's a big part of what the NHS does. It's public money and things like that. So actually, I really enjoyed going for the interview and learn about the employer. And when it came around to it, I actually accepted the job role. So then when I was doing my A levels, as I say, yes, you want the highest grades possible, because it meant actually I was able to skip a level of accounting because I'd done A-level accounting and got a high grade in it. But it took the pressure off a little bit, having to worry and stress about, first choice uni, second choice, not knowing where in the country you're going to be, which for me was another pro of doing an apprenticeship, because I was able to stay at home, keep seeing my friends, keep going to the football, keep playing cricket, and being able to sort of keep the life I had and wanted to keep going. Whether if I went to university, people tend to move away, don't they? Not that you have to, obviously. Adam's from Aston Uni down the road, but I sort of wanted to keep doing what I was able to. So I took the apprenticeship after I finished my A levels. So I do a normal, as I say, 9 to 5 accounting job. So I work as a management account in the Worcester Hospital Finance Department. And then for the first 18 months, I did level 4 AAT, which is a base level accounting qualification, which most people, if they do accounting or business in an apprenticeship, will probably end up doing either level 3 or level 4 if they've done A levels surrounding business, accounting, economics, that sort of thing. And then I've got a 3-year apprenticeship doing a chartered accounting qualification. So just before I'm 23, I'll hopefully be qualified, finished, and never have to worry about anything. So the way it works is people will stress and worry about qualifications. So a level 4 qualification is the equivalent of the first year of a university degree. So you would do that first, but obviously only in 18 months. And then a level 7 apprenticeship qualification is the same level as a master's degree. So obviously, although I'll be just before 23 when I've fully qualified, I will have the experience from 18 to 23, so 5 years experience. But I'll also have the equivalent of a master's degree qualification. So when employers are looking at your qualification, there's a lot of stigma around apprenticeships where people say, oh, if I don't have a degree and things like that, you can't reach the top jobs. That's totally not true. Deputy Director of Finance at Worcester Hospital did an apprenticeship. And if you look at a lot of people throughout high organisations now, they actually started at the bottom of companies and ended up becoming directors because they worked their way up. In the NHS and lots of companies, from their point of view, if they're putting money and time into an apprentice, it makes no sense to put a cap on how far up they can go, because, as I say, they've been moulded from when they came into the organisation. So my day-to-day would look like doing normal accounting work, so costings, and meeting with budget holders, and going out and meeting with nurses, which at the NHS tend to be our budget holders, because obviously it's the National Health Service. So matrons on wards would be my clients in a way. Whereas if you were studying an apprenticeship at a private company, at a big company, you're probably doing audits and tax and going around different clients and working with them. Whereas if you worked in industry like me, or even if you worked in a private practice, you would tend to just stay within that company or practice and just be focused purely on that. There's pros and cons to both. So what I would say is, if you're not sure what you want to do, I would definitely try and get some work experience in between now and applying for apprenticeships or university, just to give yourself a bit of a backup option if you tend to lean towards one thing. So sorry, I just made some notes. So I don't actually think I have much more to say, but what I would say is, if you are looking to do an apprenticeship, now is the time to start looking and applying. When you're going to interviews, make sure you've done prep. And I wouldn't say there's a minimum limit on how many you should apply to. If you apply to lots and you get interviews, going to the interviews and doing them is a good thing. Even if it's something that you don't want, as I say, like me, I didn't specifically think I want to go to the NHS, but actually I ended up going, and it became my first option. And doing the prep for interviews and going for interviews will help you improve. And it might surprise you. You're probably doing better than you think you are in an interview, and you might get offered the job and then end up having to turn them down. So what I would say is, start looking, start going into different companies. If they have open days, keep a look on websites. I know the careers team at KEDST often have different information that they will post for you as well. But don't rule anything out. As I say, I still applied to university. I still went to university open days. And if I didn't find an apprenticeship I didn't like, I would still have gone to university because I had an idea of what I wanted to do. But it's sometimes disheartening hearing people say, I don't know what I want to do, so I'm going to go to university and do this degree. Again, it's a lot of money. You're talking tens of thousands of pounds. And then at the end of it, if you're not quite sure what you want to do with it, but you do sort of think, you want to go into a certain field. Actually, if I left the NHS at 23 with a child accounting qualification and didn't want to still work in accounting, I'd still have no debt, being able to earn a salary, would still have the experience and the qualification. Whereas if you go to university, you're not able to fully get the experience. Yes, you can do placements, but you're not able to fully learn on the job, which can also enhance and aid your skills and your classroom learning, because you're able to put it into practice as well. I don't think I've got anything else, Lou, to talk about. Apart from
Always,
that.
yeah, as always, Luke, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Adam, I don't know if you're sold on apprenticeships now, but he's a very good example actually of a student who made a very conscious decision. And for students who are online, it's actually something really to weigh up. And I think, as Luke said, both options can be followed on a sort of a dual track until you really finally make up your mind. And we would encourage students to look at all options in front of them. Adam, have you had much to do with apprenticeships with Aston University at all?
So Aston does provide a range of apprenticeships, and they are in business settings as well. They sit a little bit outside of careers because essentially, like Luke says, you're employed. So it's not so, it would be almost a conflict of interest if we're advising students who are employed by a company how to get a job with a different company after they finish their apprenticeship. So it's a little bit of a kind of quasi relationship. We do offer support if the student wants it, but generally they already have a job, so we don't see apprentice students a lot. I did like a lot of what Luke said. I think definitely just to add the recruitment trends at the moment, that big firms like Luke mentioned, the big four, EY, PwC, Deloitte, the major accounting firms across accounting, finance, their university level recruitment is dropping slightly. So the forecast for this year is that it's going to drop around 1% to 2% across the board. But they're increasing the amount of degree apprenticeship hires significantly by around 10%. Again, that it varies depending on sector to sector, but that's just a broader picture. So I think there's more opportunity out there than ever for a degree apprenticeship, and it makes a huge amount of sense. Certainly, if you've got a more crystallized idea of yes, this is what I want to do. Yeah.
Well, what I would say as well is it depends on the person. So I wanted to do an apprenticeship because I wanted to work. Whereas if you're not quite sure you want to have the responsibility and going to work, and you're not 100% sure, or even if it doesn't feel right, each individual will have their own reasons for doing what they want to do. So I would say it's not clear cut at all. So some people would go to university open day or go to Aston and think, this fits, I want to do this. You tend to get a feel, don't you, or a general idea.
Yeah.
And I think, Adam, when you think about your students across the business sector that you're in charge of, can you just list the sort of courses? We've got economics, business. What else comes under your sector?
Well, we've got essentially core programs, and you could do those with double honors or bring in other stuff as well. But we've got human resource management, marketing, accounting and finance, economics, finance as well. So it's always a bit convoluted because some accounting departments are called the finance department. And so like accounting, we'd be looking more at things like tax and audit. Our finance degree is probably more geared towards working in the banking sector. So that's wealth management, portfolio management. We also have business computing and IT. This isn't as, let's say, technical as computer science. So you're not going to have to do heavy amounts of Python coding, that sort of thing. There's quite an innovative module in there that's delivered by a company called Accenture. They're an IT consultancy firm, so it's more about roles that support IT. So IT consultancy, cloud computing, those sort of things as well. And then we have business management and international business management. The placement on the international business program, you have to do an overseas placement for that one, just to give it a bit more excitement, I think. Yeah.
And I think Aston University is particularly motivated towards an application of the academics skills to real life settings with the placement year. Not all universities push that in quite the same way, and I think when I say push, it's actually from our perspective as careers advisors, in the same way that Luke is experiencing work on a day-to-day basis. I think to apply the academic skills that students are learning in a real life placement very often also leads to employment afterwards in some of those placements, doesn't it? Which is actually a real bonus.
Absolutely. I was having a chat with a new academic today at Aston, and she's just joined us from EY. So she's head at tax at EY. And funnily enough, she did say herself as well, they actually prefer hiring degree apprentices at EY. So definitely I'll give that. Yeah, so if you are considering, I would certainly look at degree apprenticeships, but treat that search more like a job search. Again, I think Luke was sound with this advice. Try and just have as many interactions as you can. So around career research, the data tends to suggest students who speak with 5 people doing the role that they're interested in will have better outcomes. So like Luke says, speak to Luke, speak to Faye, try to attend open evenings if that's university. But what I really liked was Luke went off and went to the employer open days as well. So many of these will have either insight days virtually or at their office as well. So you can go and visit them, and the company will talk through what they do, the divisions, the roles, what the apprenticeship's like, and the recruitment cycle as well. And like you say, Luke, I think that's a good way of, sometimes it brings down the corporate veil, and some students go in and say, actually, they're not as scary as I thought, they are just people. But again, I think, like you say, it's down to the individual. But certainly, the more interactions you do, it's more information, so you're making informed based decisions about your career.
That's great. Sorry, Luke.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not that I wouldn't have been comfortable working there, but I think sometimes a corporate apprenticeship is a lot more of a big commitment at a younger age. If you're shipped, on an audit like 10 days to Manchester, or you put up in a hotel in London for the week. So again, like you say, Adam, it's almost like a job search, and you're studying at the same time. Whereas, if you want to work in industry, there is then plenty of time in the future to then go and work in tax audit and things like that. So I think that's good advice as well.
This is smashing. It's so much kind of one view and the other, but actually both of you can see the benefits, the pros and cons of each. And obviously from a student perspective, when we talk about careers advice and guidance from our perspective, we like students to look at all options, but sometimes some students very naturally know that they are work ready. They've already been doing part-time work, had some good work experience and made those connections. And some are really ready to go and study and continue their studying, live a university life, whether that's from home or away, and experience that broadening of the person in a very different way from going to work. So students very often doing A-levels kind of know that they want to continue to learning a subject, an academic study, and extending that, and then making those decisions as they go through that learning. So it's really important that students consider what kind of future they're expecting, both in the short and medium term, and what kind of experience they want. So that's really good. Faye's been busily putting some brilliant links in the chat function. We haven't had any particular questions at the moment from students, but we have had some students who've written in beforehand. And there's just a couple of questions, if I may ask you. One I've got, I think more for you, Adam, is could I still pursue accounting and finance with an economics degree? And I don't know where you see your experience of economics graduates going into a broader range of business.
Yeah, I think actually I want to say that a high proportion of our economic students do go into accounting. So it's one of the most popular destinations, actually. I think the number one is probably the civil service for our econ program at the moment. Um, but definitely, I haven't got the report in front of me, but there's definitely a high level. And just anecdotally, the students who come to see me from economics, often they're looking to work at Deloitte, KPMG, EY. If it's not specifically audit or tax, it could be like an advisory kind of role. So there's one economic student that I know off the top of my head who was the treasurer of the Economic Society, and he did his placement at Deloitte in mergers and acquisitions, like really difficult placement to get hold of, I'd say as well. So, and I almost want to say that our economic students who go for those roles have a better conversion rate than our accounting students, weirdly. So I think that I've worked with our accounting students and they might have gone to like several different interviews. So they've gone for RSM, Mazars, a few firms, and they've managed to land a role at PwC at the end of several or quite a few interviews. This is just anecdotal, but the students I've worked from our economics program have come to see me for help, and they've maybe got one or two interviews and landed the third at an accounting firm. So the answer is yes, you can definitely go into accounting from economics. And just anecdotally, I think that the economics students are really successful at that as well.
That's really good. And perhaps a question for yourself, Luke. Can I just ask, in terms of finding apprenticeships, I know that you did that really via personal contact through asking questions, talking to people like Josh who worked here, and obviously on the pathway talk that we provided at the time from college. Just thinking about how best to advise students perhaps to find those apprenticeships. We've put lots of things in the chat here. Do you have, from your experience, any advice to students just at face value of what you've experienced?
Yeah, of course. And just a quick thing on the last question as well. I would say 40% of my child accounting qualification is economics. And there's more people in my finance department with economics degrees and accounting degrees. So
That's
they
interesting.
interlink so much. So first of all, I would always start on the government website, because most employers will put their apprenticeships, even if they're advertised internally or on their website and things like that, they'll still put their apprenticeships on the government website as a rule of thumb. If you're interested in a certain field, so if you're interested in banking apprenticeships, I would say go and look on the big banks websites. If you're interested in accounting, go and look on the big four websites. I would say sometimes I'll just fall in your lap. So you will see something on social media that's advertising it, or a lot of places will advertise on the radio and the telly and all sorts now. But I would say look at the companies in the field that you think you want to go and work in. If sometimes they're usually open all year round, so on the website there will be a link where you can apply. If they're not, there may be an email address. Drop them an email and just say, I'm interested in an apprenticeship with your firm. Do you know when they open? And things like that. So they're not actually too difficult to find. They can be quite difficult to get at the end of it for a long interview process, especially with the big companies, because they tend to have different rounds of interviews. But with my sort of apprenticeship or a small private company or an industry place, it tends just to be one interview, and then you might have a little 10-minute test on basic arithmetic and can you put numbers on a spreadsheet, but nothing you wouldn't be expected to know, lots of big things. So definitely the government website and definitely individual industry websites. Apart from that, it tends to not be too many other places where they are really. Again,
no, that's great.
And things like that.
Yeah, and LinkedIn as well, perhaps, I think is always a good one to network with as well. And perhaps attending some of the expos as well, you know, some of the employability expos that are going on, which we tend to advertise through the college as well. So that's brilliant, Luke. Thank you very much indeed. And I think talking to people, networking, increasing those sort of the knowledge of the sector and that is all. There haven't been any further questions, so what I'm going to do is ask students, if you have any further questions to ask, please do email Faye and myself at the careers@keds.ac.uk, and perhaps we can pass those on to Adam and Luke if they're specifically directed at one or the other. In addition to that, we will be circulating Adam's presentation, if that's okay for you to send that to us, Adam, thank you, and a recording of this, and we'll be using the recording as well on our pathways and in curriculum. Thank you so much to our guest speakers, Adam and Luke. That's been really, really good, and actually I think it's been a really good, interesting debate to see two very different choices, two very different routes, and for students perhaps to be a bit more informed about how to make some of those decisions for themselves. So thank you very much indeed for this evening. We look forward, Adam, to continuing the relationships with Aston Uni over the years, as we always have done. And Luke, we look forward to seeing you again very soon. So thank you very much indeed, both. And good night to everybody. Thank you.